New Mexico has one of the worst crime reputations in the country, and honestly it earned it. But here's what nobody tells you. The bad numbers are coming from a few very bad places. Meanwhile, some small towns are quietly affordable, genuinely safe, great for retirees, and completely ignored. Everyone talks about New Mexico like it's either a desert postcard or a crime statistic. No in between. According to the internet, you're either living in a peaceful Adobe dream or dodging chaos behind a gas station at sunset with a woman named Raven who has an ankle monitor that keeps buzzing. New Mexico isn't one place. It's a collection of very different towns, some that work, some that don't, and a few that somehow stay affordable and safe without anyone outside the state noticing. In this video, we're using FBI and housing data and translating those numbers into what life actually feels like if you live there. No hype, no tourism slogans, just the places where the math still works and where people actually sleep at night. Let's take a look. Number 10, Corrales, New Mexico. Corrales is one of those places that technically exists in the modern world but behaves like it made a deal not to participate in it. Corrales was first farmed by the Pueblo people centuries ago, because when you find water in the desert, you don't overthink it. Spanish and Hispano farmers followed in the late 1500s for the same reason. Fertile land, reliable water, and a location that actually made sense before air conditioning and interstates complicated everything. Today, Corrales is officially part of the Albuquerque Metro, but it refuses to act like it. It's surrounded by Albuquerque and Rio Rancho, yet somehow dodges sprawl like it's a competitive sport. Dirt roads, horses, vineyards, and acequias coexist just minutes from suburban traffic and strip malls. The population sits around 8,300 people, and most of them appear to be actively committed to keeping it that way. Corrales isn't rural because it's remote. It's rural because it chooses to be. It's the rare place where the city grew around it, and Corrales just crossed its arms and said, no thanks. Corrales is the kind of place where people ride bikes on purpose, and the biggest local crisis is someone's dog being off-leash for 11 seconds. You're right by Albuquerque, but Corrales feels like it opted out of city problems years ago and never looked back. It's quiet, scenic, and we like it this way. The catch? It's not cheap. Corrales is the town on this list that looks you dead in the eyes and says, safety costs extra. If you're trying to keep expenses low, Corrales is more dream town than budget town. But if you want calm living with quick access to a metro, it's hard to beat. For retirees, it hits the spot even if it is a little pricey. Corrales has a cost of living that's 39% higher than the New Mexico average, but it is the third safest city in New Mexico, with a crime rate that is 71% lower than the national average. Number 9, Los Alamos, New Mexico. Los Alamos feels like the kind of town that was built with a clipboard in hand. Streets are clean, yards are trimmed, sidewalks look like they've never met a piece of gum. This place has serious "we planned this" energy, which makes sense because the town literally exists because a bunch of scientists showed up in the 1940s and said, "We're about to change world history, please don't be late." Safety here is off the charts. This is a town where people don't just lock their doors, they debate why you'd ever need to. Crime is low, streets are quiet, and the most suspicious activity is someone jogging too intensely at 6 a.m. If you like places where neighbors actually attend town meetings, read the agenda, and then argue politely using data, Los Alamos is basically your Hogwarts house. And yes, the whole nuclear testing thing is part of the town's personality. The 1940s were busy. Some towns were building diners. Los Alamos was building the atomic bomb. These days, the radiation jokes are mostly jokes. Locals will assure you everything is safe now, while casually pointing out which hills you probably shouldn't lick. History here isn't hidden. It's framed, labeled, and explained in detail by someone with a PhD. Now let's talk money. Los Alamos is not cheap. This is the kind of place where you feel perfectly safe walking at night while nervously checking your bank app. Housing prices are high, rent is higher, and every time someone at the lab gets promoted, it feels like your mortgage sighs and adjusts upward. You're paying for safety, stability, and brain power, but your wallet will absolutely notice. Los Alamos is great if you want peace of mind. It's less great if you want leftover money after paying rent. Here's their numbers. The cost of living here is about 24% higher than the New Mexico average. And it is one of the safest cities in New Mexico. It's actually ranked 4th. Number 8, Edgewood, New Mexico. Edgewood is one of those towns that figured out the balance early. You're not stuck in city traffic, but you're also not packing a lunch just to go buy milk. It sits east of Albuquerque, which means you can escape the noise, the crowds, and the constant sirens, but still get back to civilization without planning a road trip. Around here, driving isn't optional. It's just how life works. Nobody complains about it because the roads are open, the views are wide, and you're not fighting for parking when you get home. The town has that open space feeling people move to New Mexico for. Houses are spread out, skies feel huge. Nights are quiet enough that you notice when a dog barks 2 streets over. Edgewood attracts people who want room to breathe, families, retirees, and folks who just don't want neighbors close enough to hear their TV through the wall. It's not flashy, and it doesn't try to be. That's kind of the appeal. Safety is solid here. It's the kind of place where people leave tools in the yard and expect them to still be there in the morning. Crime exists, but it's not something that defines daily life. Most trouble comes from people passing through, not the people who live here. Community vibes are strong, and neighbors actually recognize each other at the store instead of pretending they don't. Now, for the money part. Edgewood isn't the cheapest place in New Mexico. It costs a little more than the state average, mostly because homes sit on bigger lots and a lot of them are newer. You're basically paying extra for peace and quiet. It's not bargain bin cheap, but it's also nowhere near big city expensive. Think of it as a trade-off. You give up walkable streets and nightlife, and you get space, calm, and way less daily stress. Edgewood works best for people who like simple living. If you're okay driving for errands, cooking at home more often, and enjoying peace instead of constant entertainment, this town checks a lot of boxes. It's not trying to impress anyone. It's just trying to be comfortable. And honestly, it does a pretty good job of that. Here's their numbers. The cost of living isn't terribly bad. It's only 5% higher than New Mexico's average, so that's not terrible, and it's a great place to live. Their overall crime rate is actually 23% lower than the national average. Number 7, Farmington, New Mexico. Farmington is one of those towns that doesn't waste energy trying to sell you a lifestyle. It's here to get things done. People live in Farmington because their job is here, their family is here, and moving somewhere trendier would make life harder, not better. This is a work week town. Alarm clocks matter, schedules matter. Nobody's pretending it's a hidden gem. It's just a place that functions. Daily life here is very routine, and that's not an insult. You've got hospitals, energy jobs, schools, and retail that actually serves locals instead of tourists. A lot of people work in healthcare, education, oil and gas, or support industries tied to the region. Farmington doesn't shut down at 6 p.m., but it also doesn't pretend it's nightlife central. Entertainment is simple: high school sports, chain restaurants, and weekend trips to the outdoors. Cost-wise, Farmington is mostly reasonable, but it does run a little higher than the New Mexico average on AreaVibes. It's not expensive. It's just not dirt cheap either. Housing is generally attainable, especially compared to Albuquerque or Santa Fe, but prices reflect the fact that Farmington has steady employment and real infrastructure. You can still buy a home here without selling a kidney, which already puts it ahead of a lot of places. Safety is solid, but not perfect. Farmington makes the safer than New Mexico overall list, which honestly isn't hard to do, but it's not one of those ultra-quiet towns where nothing ever happens. Crime exists, mostly property-related and occasional spillover from economic stress. For most residents, it's manageable and predictable. Not something that dominates daily life, but also not something you ignore completely. Farmington works best for people who value stability over excitement. If you want your town to function, pay you on time, and not surprise you too much, this place makes sense. It's not flashy, it's not charming, and it's not trying to be. It's practical. And for a lot of people, that's exactly the point. Here's their numbers. Their cost of living is actually 6% lower than the New Mexico average, and their total crime rate is not that bad for a place that a lot of people consider has a lot of crime. It's only 37% above the national average, which is not bad. Like I've said many times before in this channel, we've got cities with crime rates that are 450% above the national average. Number 6, Carlsbad, New Mexico. Carlsbad feels like a place that has its act together. Not in a flashy way, more in a things work the way they're supposed to way. Neighborhoods are tidy, traffic is manageable, and most people you meet are here for pretty practical reasons: jobs, family, or they landed here for work and realized life was easier than expected. It's calm without feeling sleepy, which is harder to pull off than it sounds. A big reason Carlsbad stays functional is the local economy. Energy jobs, mining, and nearby industry keep paychecks coming in, which helps the city avoid that boom and bust feeling a lot of small New Mexico towns struggle with. There's also tourism from Carlsbad caverns, but it doesn't take over the town. Locals still come first, which shows in how the city is laid out and maintained. Day-to-day life here is pretty straightforward. You've got good grocery options, schools that are decent by state standards, and medical services that don't require a long drive. People run errands, go to work, coach their kids' teams, and repeat. It's not exciting, but it's comfortable. And that's kind of the selling point. Carlsbad is a place where routines actually stick. Cost of living runs a bit lower than the New Mexico average, according to AreaVibes, and it's still below the national average. You're not getting rock-bottom prices, but you're also not paying coastal city rent for desert living. Safety is solid compared to much of the state. It's not crime-free, but it's not gunfire and helicopters every night. Most issues are typical small city stuff, and for most residents, safety isn't something they stress about daily. You can live your life here without constantly feeling like you're a victim. As an added bonus, it has Carlsbad Caverns National Park. I went there when I was a kid. It's something cool to take your grandkids to if you're retired.
Carlsbad has a cost of living that is actually 8% lower than the rest of New Mexico. Carlsbad's crime rate is 6% lower than New Mexico's average. So one day, I'm minding my own business when I start getting flooded with robocalls. I thought, that's gotta be a fluke. Then I realized some data broker had my information and apparently was selling it to anyone with a pulse. What most people don't understand is all your information, it's out there. Google your name and buckle up. Seriously, it's kind of scary how much you can find out about someone just by Googling them. And yes, that includes your sensitive information. I'm always trying to keep my family's privacy safe, and let me tell you, it can be a full-time job. You have to search through sketchy websites, contact people, just to get your information removed, and half the time it's like playing a digital whack-a-mole game. That's why I'm actually pumped about today's video sponsor, Aura. It's an identity theft protection program that does all the internet digging for you. They find where your information's been leaked, and they delete it. Plus, they monitor your credit, keep tabs on data breaches, and even alert you if your phone number is being passed around to robocallers. Speaking of robocallers, I used to get them all the time, almost every day. Ever since I started using Aura, they practically disappeared. Now, over the years, I've tried a bunch of different identity protection services, and they're all on different websites. Aura keeps it simple, everything in one place. You can manage what they track, how they notify you, and what info you want locked down. So if you're worried about your personal information floating around online, Aura is worth checking out. They're giving my viewers a 2-week free trial. Just go to aura.com/Briggs, put in your info, and see what comes up. And don't worry, Aura keeps all that stuff encrypted, and they're not selling your data. You control what stays public and what gets deleted. Take back some control of your digital life with Aura. Back to the video.
Number 5, Aztec, New Mexico. Aztec is one of those towns that keeps life simple. It's small, quiet, and mostly focused on day-to-day living instead of trying to become something it's not. People know each other here, but it's more of a friendly nod at the grocery store than constant small talk. There's a real sense that folks look out for each other, and that goes a long way in a town this size. Aztec also comes with one very important clarification. Despite the name, there is not a group of ancient Aztecs hiding behind the visitor center waiting to sacrifice tourists. No temples, no ceremonial drums, and no one pulling you aside to check if you're chosen. It's just a normal New Mexico small town with regular people going about their day, not a History Channel reenactment gone wrong. The name throws people off, but the vibe is calm, modern, and very low drama. Your biggest risk as a visitor isn't being sacrificed. It's getting pulled into a long conversation at the grocery store or accidentally waving at someone you don't actually know. Aztec is safe, quiet, and about as unthreatening as small-town life gets. Life in Aztec moves at a steady pace. There's no rush, no big city stress, and no constant noise. Most people work locally or commute short distances to nearby towns like Farmington. You won't find a lot of nightlife or trendy spots, but you will find routines that actually stick. If you like predictable days and quiet evenings, Aztec delivers. The cost of living here is pretty reasonable. It comes in just a touch below the New Mexico average. That means you're not scoring insane bargains, but you're also not feeling priced out. Housing is attainable, utilities are manageable, and everyday expenses don't feel like a constant uphill battle. It's the kind of place where a normal paycheck can still cover a normal life. Safety is one of Aztec's strongest points. Landing in the top 10 safest cities in New Mexico is no small thing. Crime rates are low enough that safety doesn't dominate conversation or daily planning. People walk their dogs, kids ride bikes, and neighbors don't form a posse every time a strange car drives by slowly. Aztec works best for people who want calm without isolation. You get small-town comfort, solid safety, and reasonable costs, all without the chaos that drags down bigger cities. It's not flashy, it's not exciting, but it's steady. And for a lot of people, that's exactly what they're looking for. The cost of living is 5% lower than New Mexico's average. The crimes rate is a solid 11% lower. Number 4, Raton, New Mexico. Raton is the kind of town most people don't plan to visit. They just accidentally drive through it. It sits right up near the Colorado border, and for a lot of travelers, it's just a sign on the highway between where I was and where I'm going. Tourists blow right past it chasing mountains or ski towns, which honestly works out great for the people who live here. Less traffic, less noise, less nonsense. This is a slow-moving town where days feel longer and schedules aren't stacked back to back. You can hear trains, wind, and your own thoughts, sometimes all at once. People who live here usually want peace more than excitement. No crowds, no pressure, no rush to keep up with trends nobody asked for. Affordability is one of the town's strongest points. It's cheaper than the New Mexico average, and it isn't a horrible place to live. That's always the trade-off. Housing costs are low, everyday expenses are manageable, and you don't feel like your paycheck disappears the second it hits your account. You won't get fancy, but you also won't be stressed. Safety is another plus. Crime here sits well below the New Mexico average. It's the kind of place where people know what's normal and notice when something isn't. For most residents, safety isn't a daily worry. It's just part of the background. There's no nightlife scene, no trendy dining district, and no reason influencers are lining up to take photos here. Tourists ignore it so hard they sometimes forget to stop for gas. But that's exactly why some people love it. If you want a town where costs are low, life is quiet, and you can sleep at night without drama, Raton, New Mexico makes a solid case for itself. Here's their numbers. The cost of living is 6% lower than New Mexico's average, and the crime rate's 30% lower than New Mexico's average. That is not bad. Number 3, Grants, New Mexico. Grants is the kind of town people don't usually plan to spend time in. It's where you stop because your bladder makes the decision for you somewhere between Gallup and Albuquerque. You pull off the highway, stretch your legs, use the restroom, and think, this place is cheaper than I expected. And honestly, that's kind of Grants' whole thing. Affordability here is very real. Housing is cheap. Rent and home prices are lower than most of New Mexico, and everyday costs don't feel like they're constantly chasing your paycheck. If your top priority is stretching a dollar and not stressing every month, Grants makes a strong argument. This is a town where a normal job can still support a normal life. Grants has a very practical, no-frills vibe. It used to be tied heavily to mining and rail jobs, and you can still feel that working-class backbone today. Life here is simple. People go to work, run errands, and go home. There's no pressure to impress anyone, and no one's pretending this is a hot destination. It's functional, straightforward, and a little rough around the edges, but honest about it. Safety is mixed, depending on where and how you look at the data. AreaVibes does place Grants on the statewide safest list, which counts for something in New Mexico. That said, this is not a leave your door unlocked and your car running town. It's more of a lock your stuff, mind your business, and you'll be fine situation. Most issues are avoidable if you're paying attention. Grants isn't exciting, and it's not trying to be. Tourists mostly treat it like a pit stop. Gas, bathroom, maybe a snack, then back on the highway. But for people who care more about affordability than buzz, and who want a place where the bills don't control their life, Grants quietly gets the job done. It may start as a bathroom break, but some people end up staying. Cost of living, 11% lower than New Mexico's average, and the crime rate is 4% lower than the rest of the state. Number 2, Roswell, New Mexico. Yes, the town with all the aliens. Roswell is one of those towns that quietly checks a lot of boxes without making a big fuss about it. It's big enough to have real services like hospitals, shopping, jobs, but small enough that life doesn't feel chaotic. You're not stranded out here, but you're also not competing with 40 people for a parking spot. It's a place where daily life actually works, which already puts it ahead of a lot of cheaper towns. Affordability is one of Roswell's strongest selling points. It's cheaper than the New Mexico average and well below the national average, which means your paycheck goes further without you having to sacrifice basics. Housing is attainable, rent is reasonable, and everyday expenses don't feel like a constant ambush. You don't need a tech salary or a side hustle just to stay afloat here. Safety is also better than people expect. Roswell still ranks on New Mexico's safest list, which is impressive for a city its size. That doesn't mean nothing ever happens, but it does mean most residents go about their lives without having issues. Now let's address the elephant or spaceship in the room. Roswell has absolutely leaned into the whole alien crash thing. Museums, street art, festivals, gift shops. If aliens are real, they've probably already scoped the place out. And yes, locals joke that if extraterrestrials ever come back, they might want to probe your back door again. Mostly because the town has made it very clear it's still open for business. It's all part of the charm, and honestly, it keeps things light. Beyond the UFO branding, Roswell is a normal, livable city. Schools, jobs, and infrastructure matter more here than hype. If you want affordability, stability, and a town that functions, with the added bonus of alien jokes baked into daily life, Roswell makes a surprisingly strong case for itself. The cost of living in Roswell, New Mexico is 9% lower than New Mexico's average. It's actually 15% lower than the national average. Now their crime, that's a bit of a sticking point. It's not terrible, but it is 48% above the national average. Like we discussed before, that isn't world-shattering. I mean, unless you're the guy that gets robbed. And number 1, Truth or Consequences, New Mexico. Truth or Consequences is one of those towns that immediately makes people stop and ask, wait, that's a real place? And yes, it is. This town literally renamed itself after a game show, which already tells you it doesn't take itself too seriously. Back in 1950, residents voted to change the name from Hot Springs just so an NBC radio show hosted by Ralph Edwards would broadcast from town. That might be the most honest marketing move in New Mexico history. Edwards visited the town during the first weekend of May for the next 50 years. This event became known as Fiesta and eventually included a beauty contest, a parade, and a stage show. The affordability makes people do a double take too. Truth or Consequences is one of the cheaper towns on this list, with housing prices that still feel stuck in a different decade. Rent is low, home prices are famously reasonable, and everyday costs don't feel like they're trying to sneak up on you. If your goal is to live cheap without living in the middle of nowhere, this place gets your attention fast. The town itself is small, relaxed, and proudly quirky. It leans into hot springs, art, and a low-key desert lifestyle. People here aren't rushing anywhere. It attracts retirees, artists, and folks who looked at normal city life and said, no thanks. If you like calm more than convenience, it fits. Safety is where the trade-off comes in. It's not a crime-free bubble. It does have some crime, not crazy, but it is there. The vibe is more relax and enjoy life. Well, just don't completely shut your brain off. Basic awareness goes a long way here, like locking your car and not assuming every situation is harmless. At the end of the day, this is a town named after a game show that decided to fully commit to being different. You get affordability, character, and a slower pace of life. With the understanding that this isn't a polished, high-security resort town. Truth or Consequences works for people who like things a little weird, a little cheap, and a lot less stressful. The cost of living in Truth or Consequences is 14% lower than New Mexico's average, and their crime rate is 6% lower than the New Mexico average. All right, that's today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you got some information out of it. Now go out, have a great day, be nice to each other.